Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here and I'm back with Rob Hill for another audio commentary. This time it's on Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. Now Rob, you haven't seen this film, I believe, since it came out on DVD. But obviously now you've refreshed your memory with it, and I know you weren't too happy with your experience of going back to it. So are we going into a commentary full of hate and anger?
No, no, mild hate and anger maybe. It's
Yeah.
not as bad a movie as like that second AVP movie is, but it just had so much promise, and that's the one thing I can't deal with in a terrible movie is when it just lets everyone down. And it's like the prequel, the Star Wars prequels, my go-to example. They're not the worst films ever made, but considering the potential, and this kind of falls into that category, to be honest.
It does indeed. So, folks, you can enjoy this podcast by itself, but if you wish to sync it up with your own copy of the film on Blu-ray or NTSC DVD, then press play now. Now, I saw this film in the cinema back in the summer of 2003. There's quite a lot of hype for this because, look, we hadn't had a Terminator film for, 12 years at that point? I hadn't seen T2 3D. I didn't have I saw like a making of, so I didn't get to experience that little short movie done by James Cameron, which was kind of like the sort of the stepping stones for Terminator 3 if one was made under his direction. So, the trailers for this film were generally okay. I mean, I wasn't like, wowed completely, but, it had a lot of crazy action in it. And, despite the sort of the look of it, it kind of was, from what I saw, taking ideas again from Terminator 2, which also took ideas from Terminator 1. So when this kind of came out, I was like everyone else went to see it, and it made a huge amount of money, but there was a lot of like underwhelmed kind of response to this, and most of the fans were pretty annoyed by it, I would say, and I think the general attitude was disappointed. That was it.
Yeah, that rings true. That was my experience certainly, because it doesn't add anything, it doesn't do anything, and there's a sense nobody really cared as well, which kind of makes it fun to watch now. I think despite not having a huge amount of time for it, I think there's plenty to talk about, and it's a good one to do a commentary on in a way. But yeah, like you say, it recycles so much from Terminator 2. It really shocked me going back to it actually.
It sort of starts on a whimper because the first two start with a great, synthesized theme, the Terminator theme being deployed. Now we've got this very basic black background with Terminator style font, and it's all essentially kind of a flashback. And the trailers, made use of the future sequences quite a lot. And you think, oh, there's going to be a lot more future war in this, which I did. You had sort of complained about in T2, saying you didn't need to see any more of it, which is kind of a fair argument. But how the trailers deployed a lot of it, to advertise this film, I felt very let down. That essentially all you're seeing is the opening sequence, which is a few shots of the future with, Nick Stahl kind of replacing Ed Furlong as John Connor, not looking the part at all, totally
That was
miscast.
ridiculously miscast. And and he's not done any favors either by the general level of filmmaking. What is this? I had to go back and make sure I hadn't missed some kind of explanation here as to what's going on with this bike riding bit when he gets to the thing in a minute. But either way, the problem with this opening, and it really sets me off on the wrong foot, is that it explains everything about this character, everything that we should be learning by watching what he says and does throughout the movie, by remembering back to what we know about him already. It's just a monologue explaining everything that we should be shown.
Mm. Because it's all plays on the idea that he's completely lost in this current timeline after destroying Skynet and Cyberdyne. But as with all sequels, and the only way for them to make another one was that Skynet was inevitable. You just you just delay it. I mean, I like the kind of use here, the location where now we've got the future transitioning to these kind of very kind of modern kind of skyscrapers behind him that are all kind of very similar, and then you cut to this bit where he's sitting on the bridge, which feels like something from T2, a similar location they've used in LA. But again, we're being teased with the future stuff, which is a combination of the T800s and the hunter killers, which are now taking on a different look, which is obviously done in a way to show you, because they've got obviously in the sort of timeline he is in now, you see like the military are devising these new hunter killers, which are kind of basically these but smaller, right?
I hadn't considered that. Yeah, so it's a bit like Star Trek, and I suppose this is now a split timeline, and this is not the same future that we've seen in T1 and T2. Technically, not quite.
Yeah, I suppose so, because it's always we're dealing with time, so things always get a bit muddled up, don't they? And doing sequels where they kind of want to introduce new designs, and but it could be just a certain section of timeline where things would progress into more the traditional hunter killers. But we're seeing the T800s now, so it's kind of like, well, which stage are we in? But it's again ILM returning to do the sequel, where they obviously won an Academy Award from T2, so they're obviously naturally going to do this again at a huge cost. I mean, it's like how many did this cost? I think it was around 200 million, or maybe slightly less. Obviously produced by Mario Kazar again. It wasn't Coralco anymore. Of course, that company went bankrupt, and he set up C2 Pictures to get the rights again, or to maybe to sort of maintain the rights. I don't know, but it always, with each one, like the fourth one was still Mario Kazar. I think Andrew Vanya as well, but under different names. So. It's still the producers are still behind it all, but it's the creatives that are kind of been lost in the mix.
Yeah, and you could that sense really does come through as well. This is a movie that feels like it was made by men in suits, not creatives, not. And it's summed up by Arnold's whole approach to doing it, wasn't it? It's famously, he was trying to get Cameron to come back for the third one and said he didn't want to make it without him. And in the end, Cameron just said, "Look, just go for as much money as you can get and then turn up on set." And that's basically what he and everyone else, I think, here did.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it was an extraordinary payday, wasn't it? It's $30 million or something dollars, and 20%, I think it was, of the back end, as well as complete approval over casting of everybody and everything.
Mad, isn't it? It's well, obviously, this film is like most films at the time, dealing with a lot of digital effects. Is shot on Super 35 millimeter celluloid. So, in the sort of pan and scan version of this, when what's her name again, Christina Loken, when she kind of appears, you can see more of her body basically.
Oh, really?
Completely naked. Yes, in the widescreen, just all cropped off.
Do they still have the titles over the money shot CGI? Killer moment. I thought that looked so amateurish when I went back and watched this again. This is the moment that the fanboys are waiting for, and then some innocuous credit comes up for a third unit director or something.
But I mean, again, obviously the director of photography is Don Burgess, who had done Spider-Man like the year before, and that had a very orange look to it. And T3 is a very orange looking film. I think it was so visually so kind of different to 1 and 2, and keeping continuity visually, it didn't seem to match.
It looks a lot more generic, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah, it looks like a TV movie.
Yeah.
I think in many places it doesn't look great. I don't think it's like a very sort of average looking movie with a lot of visual effects, kind of expensive visual effects thrown into it.
Yeah, it's only really the action scenes where it feels like a big budget production.
Yeah, for sure.
These sort of on-screen graphics, I don't know how they'd be described for robots, but I know it sounds stupid because they've had these visualization tools for what robots can see for decades, and including in the original Terminators. But in this day and age, or when this was made even, the understanding people have of how computers work and so on, it seems really anachronistic and weird to me, because it's like for a robot to have a heads-up display in its own eye sensors, it's kind of like a Mac sending messages to itself with a clipboard hanging in front of its camera. Do you know what I mean? It's a completely analog, backwards means of communication to itself.
if you look at like the Apple Vision thing, you know, the sort of 3D device they brought out recently. I mean, it looks it's a bit like that, where you've got stuff in your face. You know what I mean? Like things you can pull
But we're
down and
not
look at.
digital beings. We need that information fed
Yeah,
through our sensors in that way. This is essentially a walking computer. It doesn't. Its sensors don't. I don't know. It's a stupid thing, but this is what I start thinking about when movies are boring me.
I'll see. To avoid being arrested, she just basically inflated her boobs.
Oh man, have you listened to the commentary for this movie?
Oh, years ago, I did. I not refreshed myself with Jonathan Mostow's ramblings.
I didn't bother this time because I gathered it wasn't all that worthwhile. But I did notice everyone was talking about Arnold having a great moment then and there, and it's on YouTube. There's a few clips of it on YouTube, and it's well worth checking out. Arnold's take on the expanding boobs is absolutely priceless. It's so funny. He spends about 10 minutes just talking about it. And you have the women in the audience, and they look to each other and they say, "Oh yes, that would be good." It's just amazing.
Now, we were saying the other day, because we were talking a little bit about this film before we started the commentary, but you were quite impressed with Claire Danes' performance in this.
Yeah, I think she stands out because she's the only thing in it that isn't schlock, really. And in a way, she spoils it because it stops me embracing it as a an ironically entertaining fiasco, because she's just there constantly being really good, and it doesn't fit. You know, she's not done any favors by anyone around her, and having all those scenes with Nick Stahl, who is just diabolical.
Because I hadn't seen him in much around that time, and obviously he went on to appear in Sin City. I think he went off the rails a little bit later on in his kind of career.
The Curse of John Connor.
Recently Edward Furlong had an interview with the guy who plays Lex Luthor in that Smallville TV show. I can't remember is it Michael Rosenbaum or something like that? But Ed had revealed that he had been signed on to do this. I think it's a 3-picture deal, because obviously they're going to do a new trilogy at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, I can be back as John Connor. It's going to be great." And also there's a clause in the contract where he said he couldn't be taking drugs. He had to clean himself up. So he's like, "Right, okay, I can clean myself up, but this is the last day I can go out on a bender." So he went out. He took loads of drugs and basically OD'd, I think, or sort of passed out, and he got caught out, and they ripped up his contract, and he was no longer going to be John Connor again. So I had to quickly recast, and they put in Nick Stahl.
Yeah.
So it's, if Ed had cleaned himself up and he was in this, it would have, I think, it made the film a little bit more bearable, because you had that sort of continuity there.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, and you could see, because Ed Furlong around the time, I'd seen him in Detroit Rock City, which I thought was a very good film, and Ed was good in that. But he was, again, playing a guy who's a bit of a druggie. He's quite good at that, so we can draw upon the personal experiences. But yeah, he would have been great to see him as John again. I remember being quite impressed actually with Arnold, at the time, because he hadn't acted for a couple of years, maybe he had a few duds, but it was kind of the last big movie he was going to do before he became governor of California. And he's huge in this sequence here. He's still massive. I don't know if they've done any digital work.
Do you know what? I've made a note to ask you in this exact scene, because it's only this scene when it stands out to me whether or not he has had some digital enhancement here. Because he's very proud of saying that he got himself back to pretty much the same size he was for T2. But at the end of the day, they always say that, don't they? And there's something there.
I think his skin has been smoothed down, I think.
There's something that doesn't look quite right to me there, but I don't know. But yeah, on the whole, I think the jump from T1 to T2 might even be more noticeable than from T2 to T3 in terms of his appearance.
Because remember we were saying in the T2 commentary, he's a bit more leaner, isn't he, in T2? And number one, he's ginormous. He's like the Conan size,
And he does look a bit. His face does look a bit, noticeably younger in the first Terminator. Whereas he doesn't really seem to have aged much between the second and third.
They don't keep the same haircut. They should have the centre parting he has in the first one.
Oh yeah.
His hair. He's got like curtains, like a boy band from the 90s. And then number two, it's kind of like a sort of buzz cut type hair, isn't it? Really?
Terminators like to keep up with the trends.
Now he should be appealing like a really half-assed mullet, maybe. I don't know, but. He's got to keep off the radar, hasn't he? Because he goes to steals medicine from like veterinarians.
Yeah, without having any idea what it is. Just, there's some pills. That's bound to be what I need.
Maybe something to do with constipation. Oh God, it's like. But again, this was. I mean, if that's Arnold, I mean, he's still ginormous. Look at his back. Yeah, well.
It did strike me, actually, how fortunate the Terminator is to constantly materialise right by some kind of biker joint or punk gang, or like, imagine if he turned up just next to like an H&M or something. It always allows him to have a badass outfit rather than normal clothes.
Well, yeah, it just pops, if it's obviously set in America, like appears outside a Walmart and just goes in, just trying on different clothes, trying to find what he can
Shorts
get.
and a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, and then he sees a guy who's wearing something he could wear, and then he grabs him because he struggles to find what he wants. Now that'll be a little play on things. This is a complete retread of T2.
Yeah,
it's like when that lady walks past and goes, "Oh," she sees him, and and he gets an outfit which is kind of the same, but kind of not as good. It's a really baggy outfit he wears.
And this is where it all goes. Like you say, this is a complete retread of T2, but they do what they do with Arnold in every single scene in this movie. They make a joke out of it. So it's exactly the same scene, but the funny thing is it's actually a male stripper who he's going to be dressed as for that's like comedy, I guess. But if you notice, every single scene almost with him, he's either kind of parodying himself or poking fun at himself. It's like it's a complete repeat of something he's said or done before, or it subverts something he's said and done before. He doesn't do anything new. Even this, like you've got to have the sunglass scene. Why have you got to have the sunglasses scene?
Yeah, it's nighttime as well. A human will be able to see bugger all, but I suppose a Terminator can. But yeah, obviously, just another joke. Elton John glasses.
Like if they'd left it there, this would have been fine. But they do this kind of thing all the time.
You can cut these bits out, I suppose. Do a fan edit. There you go. Just cut the shit out, and the films end up being 45 minutes long. Yeah, it makes me think actually when you're talking about like what actual genuine shape he was in, because you only see him like that for the opening. But then I suppose in T2 you only see him naked for a little bit as he gets the outfit, and then But this is like years ago, so we all knew he was in fantastic shape. But
yeah, he's only
for one movie.
What was he, 53 or something in this? Something like that. I think.
I suppose he can still be like I mean, people today are still massive, aren't they? At that age, like wrestlers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at Stallone now. He's got a bigger chest now than he ever used to.
His legs have got very thin, though.
Yeah, he's not.
It's up looking at most of these older guys who are still really big on top. Their legs are just little poles.
Because he's got quite short legs anyway, so he does look funny in the long shots in that new Expendables movie. Not taking the right kind of steroids, obviously.
So obviously this is kind of playing on the idea that John Connor's got a team of men who are going to working with him in the future, and she's going to obviously wipe them all out. And this new kind of super virus they're talking about, which is obviously Skynet, is going to be unleashed by the military when they activate it. It's all it's supposed to be employed as a virus, isn't it? That's tricking them that it is Skynet that's going to then take over. I mean, I don't mind that idea, but I just don't.
Sorry to interrupt you. This is the movie's only redeeming moment.
Shooting the lad. yeah.
No, it's. I think they handle the Skynet business reasonably well. At the end of the day, it's.
Yeah, I think it all kind of happens quite quickly, doesn't it? I think it's kind of everything's kind of falling apart, like within about 10 minutes into the movie, which I suppose it's kind of the right way to go for the type of running time they want, and it's getting straight to the meat of it. It's not wasting time, but it's also like with that sort of passage of time we've been given is a little bit of John Connor just like going, woe is me, I'm bored and I'm unemployed, I'm on I don't know, I think maybe that's sort of his journey the last 10 years or whatever should maybe a little bit more interesting perhaps than just going but it's the argument he has to stay undercover, doesn't he, and be off the radar, but
and not fall asleep in vets' offices after taking a load of epilepsy medicine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think something could a little bit more interesting could have been developed for his kind of what he's been up to the last few years, instead of working on doing DIY or whatever, or working on building sites.
Yeah, we get a few seconds of that and a few minutes of him just telling us in voiceover stuff, and it's not enough.
No.
And also, if it's going, it makes a lot of sense for this like sort of compressed time frame to have signs that Skynet's already starting to do stuff. I think there was meant to be a scene a minute ago when the TX steals that car, demonstrating that someone couldn't get a mobile phone signal, and so that was kind of meant to be a clue that things were already gone awry. But then they don't marry that to any kind of narrative urgency. They don't really take advantage of it being not real time as such, but a compressed time frame. Like in the original Terminator, it's got this constant forward drive, and that's just completely absent from this.
It is. It's like it's you're getting news reports, and people aren't totally concerned. It's just kind of something. It's kind of like background kind of material where it should have been maybe running adjacent with plot A, to sort of show this kind of rush, or like this kind of looming threat that's going to happen.
Yeah, a looming threat is what we're missing here, and considering we're looking at an almost instant apocalypse, there kind of should be something like that.
And what do you think of Kristanna Loken as the TX? Do you think? Because I thought the idea of introducing a female Terminator was absolutely fine, but it's kind of the design of it's just weird. It's basically a combination of a T-800 with liquid metal over the top that had that could deploy more weapons instead of stabbing weapons. You could do flamethrowers and all this stuff, and hack cars, which is impossible.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on that.
If we had electric cars at this point, you could say, hey, there could be some way you could do that, right, and hack it, and, Skynet could do it. But with this, where she hacks the cars by phoning up...
Yeah, it's completely... It's impossible, and it's insultingly impossible, frankly. But I think she's fine as an actor in the role, Kristanna Loken. I think she's fine, but unlike the second one, where you have Big Arnie fighting Small Man, and it's convincing and believable. Somehow it isn't as convincing and believable. I don't know if it's her performance or her physicality or the way it's shot, quite possibly, actually.
I mean, if it was done now, it would have been done with like one of those UFC fighters, a woman who's just ginormous, so you could see, okay, this could be a posable threat to Arnold.
Well, that's what he wanted, wasn't it? He wanted Chyna, the WWF wrestler. And it would have made more sense maybe, but because it's also a bit not insulting, but she's one of those characters that executives go, movie geeks, sci-fi geeks, sad little nerds, give them someone sexy, they'll be happy. It's that 7 of 9 syndrome in Star Trek.
Also, I'm not entirely convinced by the outfit T8 the TX has, this kind of red leather thing where there's always someone of authority they would impersonate, where she's not doesn't have that authoritative kind of look. Maybe because they thought, okay, let's try and make her blend even more, where she's just a woman wearing this kind of fancy outfit. That, but it also deploys that, with the female Terminator to be that shallow, she has to wear this. You know what I mean? That's the first thing she sees. You think she would be. I don't know. I mean, you couldn't. Again, you've already used a cop.
Exactly. Yeah. Once you've done the cop, you can't really put her in another uniform because it'll be too much of an allusion back to that, I guess.
Yeah. Does it weird though? Like when she tests the blood on the floor of John Connor, and it's like she kind of suddenly orgasms or something.
Oh,
there was kind of. It's weird. Like why they would do that.
She's not intimidating, is she? She's just not scary enough.
No. She's getting the movements down, I think, the sort of slow turns and stuff, But that's just kind of like, bit of practice, piece of piss. But the, had you seen Jonathan Mostow's other film, Breakdown?
Yes. Yeah, loved it.
It was a really good film. And I suppose you could that the element of chase in this is obviously very apparent in Terminator. Someone's always being chased. So with Breakdown, maybe they saw that sort of he could do this, but he didn't seem like the guy. I think it's always best to maybe pick someone who had a strong background in visual effects or who had dealt with science fiction. And I think they've maybe just gone with the guy who he knows how to do action. And I don't think, and I don't fault Jonathan Mostow for that. I think he's. I mean, at the end of the day, you're kind of working with second unit teams. So it's always going to be the action's going to be pretty confident. Competent as well. For this kind of budget. But I think maybe his pitch was kind of interesting to Mario Kazar and Andrew Vanya.
I know Arnold was happy to have him. I remember reading that somewhere. But studios do this a lot, don't they? They'll take someone who made a really interesting small film and then give them this enormous playground to play with, and it can be overwhelming, I think. I think it's very easy to lose sight of what got you where you were in the first place and to lose sight of what you're trying to do and make.
Also, this is, last number of years when this film had come out, maybe 3 or 4 years prior to that, the internet was sort of kind of was around at that point, and people were bitching and moaning about films on the internet. And obviously, George Lucas, kind of said, I think only recently, that the Phantom Menace was kind of destroyed by the internet, which kind of spread word of mouth far quicker. And Jonathan Mostow jumping onto this, he must have been shitting his pants, the pressure of doing a sequel to James Cameron's one of the biggest movies of the 90s. If I was in his shoes, I probably wouldn't have done it.
I think I'd have fought to have more differences, because that's where the trouble always lies, isn't it? If you go in a completely new direction, you're going to avoid a lot of comparisons. But I mean, this here is a scene we've already seen effectively in 2 movies now.
Yep. But the twist is, though, isn't it, that he's not. He's there to protect her, isn't he?
Yeah, but we already kind of had that twist in T2, and there are differences, but it still very much mirrors the kind of scenes and plays out in the same kind of way as the last movie.
For sure. I mean, Arnold's here. I mean, I think with the use of the colours, obviously I complained about the film looking very orangey. These sort of moments here look quite good with Arnold, and you've got the flames and stuff behind him. It's kind of visual elements that kind of look, for a mundane kind of setting, they've made it kind of look generally pretty good. That's so Evil Dead, the hand through the floor. But I just kind of thought conceptually the TX kind of didn't make much sense. The liquid metal made sense, but now a combination of the two it felt weird, like a step backwards for Skynet and its design.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure what the advantage is either. I mean, okay, yeah, it's got a selection of weapons now, but I can't. I mean, maybe it does use them and they're integral to everything, and I can't remember. But I think if I could turn my arm into a massive fucking sword, I'd be fairly happy with that, and that's what I'd stick with. Especially if I could just steal any weapon I saw that I like the look of.
For sure.
Which again they do. They cock up here, because we already know that these Terminators can just take any kind of weapons they want. So why do they have to risk going to a known location of Sarah Connor's? And at what lengths did she have to go to in the first place to get them all those guns in that coffin?
True. Yeah.
It's pointless. It could have just walked into a shop and taken what he wanted.
With this colour design, it does make Terminator feel more like a comic book. Do you think? I think it's very more, because it's lacking that sort of, that the cold blues of Cameron's kind of sci-fi world, where this feels so much more warm.
You're right. I never thought I'd miss that teal look, that sort of cyany, which is now what everything has to look like. I was watching this kind of thinking I quite appreciate this being a bit warmer, but it does make it look cheap and generic.
When I spoke to Brad Fidel a number of years back, when I interviewed him for the action documentary I produced, I said to him, were you asked to come back for Terminator 3? He goes, oh yeah, and they asked me to come back, but they only hired me to do the music for the trailer. Because they were more concerned, or more their priority was to say, "Hey, we've got the guy who did the music for Terminator to do the trailer." And they paid him a fortune. So I think the first teaser they put out had music composed by Brad Fiedel for the trailer specifically. I think there may be another track of music he'd done for one of the trailers or internationally or something, because this film was distributed by two studios, Warner Brothers for I think America and Columbia TriStar everywhere else. It's obviously because of I think C2 Pictures was still raising money from different studios or perhaps different finances, again, maybe in a perhaps more independent way, which they used to do with Corelco. So obviously split the cost of distribution. But they didn't end up using Brad to do the whole score, which is really bizarre. And they've got Marco Beltrami, who's done some amazing material, but this is some of his worst stuff I've ever heard. It has no character to it, has nothing distinctive about it.
It's dire, isn't it?
It's really bad. And Jonathan Mostow said, "Oh, we've got something really special for the end of the movie, for the end credits. We've got an orchestral version of the Terminator theme." Like, what are you doing? Who in their right mind thought that was a good idea? You take electronic score, make it orchestral, and it sounds shit. Oh, it's such a bad move. That's why he wasn't the right director for this, making boneheaded decisions like that.
It is a weird decision when you think about it. I mean, it's such a great asset to have to play with that score.
Let's take Star Wars and do an end credits with like a keyboard Casio synthesizer, That would be great. This is such nonsense. How could you control those cars? It's crap. God, it makes me so angry, that does. It's just idiot writing. I think people will fall for that. Yeah, that'll be true. Yeah, you can do that with police cars, can't you? Because I've got like a computer in it, to access people's, previous crimes or whatever.
They did it really nicely in one of the Fast and Furious movies. Actually, I don't know if I've mentioned what a big fan of those movies I am. I'm not proud, but I love that Fast and Furious franchise. And there's a really cool sequence with radio-controlled cars in that, but it's kind of more believable. And obviously nowadays it's actually viable. This is a good sequence, though. This was like a proper old school, completely over the top. It could almost be straight out of Terminator 2, this action sequence, this chase.
Yeah, this is also, I believe, the most expensive sequence they did in the film, which was also used heavily in the trailers. And it's like, combination of in-camera stunt work and CG, and it's done well. It's shot well as well. And it's a pretty exciting sequence,
Christ, he's just useless at everything. He's so lame as a character in this.
And what frustrates me, because they've made John Connor basically incompetent.
Yeah.
And he should be. This guy is supposed to be a born leader. Should have kept on what he'd been told by his mother and by the Terminator, what he'd experienced back in the early days as a child. He's completely forgotten it all. He's just like,
this character is runaway skaghead. There's nothing more to him than that, and that isn't what John Connor is in the Terminator lore, and it isn't what he's been doing. This isn't someone who's had the life that he's had. It doesn't make sense.
Isn't that guy there who's calling over the police? Wasn't he one of Arnold's stuntmen?
Ah, he does look
familiar.
like he does. Yeah. I can believe that.
Taking his cameo.
Now, watch out for the silver Volvo. I'm not the most observant of people, but I noticed the same silver Volvo about 5 times in this chase scene.
There's also an exciting sequence where what was it? A sort of paddling pools gets knocked out of the way by the cars.
The sound effect that comes with it. Do you remember the sound? That made me laugh.
Hammer wouldn't have that in his film.
This is decent stuff, I think.
I mean, it's all been cut well. It's not cutting too fast.
Yeah.
So you kind of you're taking in what you're seeing. But it's edited by 2 guys I don't actually know. Never heard of. It's missing some Mark Goldblatt editing. That's what it's missing. Fucking hell. Telekinesis.
Okay, he's got that thing that actors get when they can't just have they can't just let their face rest. He has to be expressing the complete existential turmoil that he feels in every single moment that he's on camera.
Look at this is really well done. The wide shots as the camera's sort of going along filming. It's really well choreographed.
Oh, we've got a silver Volvo shot coming up. I know it. I've got a feeling I've missed them so far. I'm sure we've had some. That's a great shot.
That is just nuts, isn't it?
There's a silver Volvo, and there it is again, and there it is again.
It's literally like someone causing carnage in a video game, isn't it? But this is a perfect example of like, okay, we're gonna do what they did in Terminator 2, but we're just gonna go to the up to 11 with it. You know, it's always it's the sequel mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of the river gully scene, but in the city centre.
And obviously, when he kicked the copper off the bike, he was wearing the exact same outfit as Robert Patrick in T2. So just like this little nod there, which may have, I don't know, even at the time, I think most fans would have just gone, "Ugh," you know. But you know, it's very, I suppose, it's very difficult to have if you throw little nods into stuff. How's people going to react to it? You know. Here we go. Is the exciting action sequence of hitting a paddling pool.
The sound effect just stands out. In the midst of all that mayhem, what you can hear is a small inflatable thing bumping on the ground. Silver Volvo, there it is again. Look. Before they smashed it up the first time.
There is a bit though that the CG double for Arnold isn't quite convincing because it's very much like this kind of rag doll just getting thrown around.
Yeah, I read some criticism of that actually. That he's meant to be 1,000 pounds in weight or whatever it is, and yeah. This is where it all goes pear-shaped again. I hate this shot, this bit of him in the fire truck. Again, it's just another cheap joke.
But also, the TX smiles when he gets hit by it. They wouldn't react anyway. They'd just be like, but they wouldn't display any sort of signs of that type of emotion, I don't think. That's a little nitpick there.
I suppose they always have a chase with one of these kind of knackered vans with a cardboard box on the back of it, don't they, as well? There's
they do,
T1
don't
and
they?
2 have the same vehicle. It must be a deliberate reference.
Can't this thing go any faster? It's a Geo! You know, it's like Ned, you know.
I wonder if this comes from Arnold. Like, she's got a crane. I need something massive too.
Well, it was Arnold though. If he got his way, he would have got one of those crazy military 4x4 things he always drives around in at that point, wasn't it?
I suppose he gets his moment at the end when he turns up in a helicopter twice the size of hers.
Yeah. It's crazy in a way that, you know, there's a 12-year gap and visual effects have improved quite considerably since 1991, but because they're deploying more of it to do more outlandish things, it kind of weirdly doesn't stand up.
Absolutely. I always say that about visual effects. Is every single generation of them, they start off kind of better than they are 5 years, 10 years later, because people just get carried away and use them too much when they're not ready.
It'd be interesting to see if this film, you know, does eventually get remastered into 4K, but I imagine it won't be a huge improvement because it would have been played out in 2K at the time, so they would have to gone back and re-render all the effects in 4K, which they will not do.
Yeah, I always wonder what's going to happen with that. We've talked about this before, haven't we? So I used to work in visual effects, and everything was shot out on an Arri laser camera at 2K. And what do they do now? I mean, do they literally just up-res those
They would have to.
graphics, those effects, or do they go back to the source and render them out at a higher resolution and I don't know.
Yeah, because this would have been played out onto a 35mm
Yeah,
print, obviously, but a 2K resolution. So you may see a little bit extra detail, but yeah, there would have been some sort of upscales. But I mean, like, I presume the dialogue stuff like this would look great in 4K, but the visual effects will probably kind of be trapped in that 2K thing. But ultimately, all the stuff without visual effects is still being played out at 2K. So yeah, it's that weird decade where things are going to be trapped in a certain resolution.
yeah. It's ongoing as well. I'm a big X-Files fan, and the X-Files TV series remastered on Blu-ray. All the establishing shots are SD still.
Yeah,
It's really weird. Just establishing shots.
yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because I watched the first couple of seasons of X-Files, and season one is a lot of like they'll be talking like camera A, 35mm transfer, and then the camera B will be like video. Like, obviously they clearly did the remaster, they couldn't find all the assets, but for later ones they're all far more consistent. It's great seeing it in high definition.
I think a lot of it's when it's a lot of stuff I noticed. I theorised it might have been stock footage that they couldn't resource because, like I say, it's like an establishing shot of a city or something. It's
Yeah, for sure. Obviously with the Terminator, he's always deployed just to dump loads of exposition, right? And obviously we find out this is a slightly upgraded T800, so it's T850, and it sort of shows you his power source, doesn't he? When he pulls it out, it's been damaged. One of them, as he throws it, it's kind of like mini nuclear bomb goes off. But also, weirdly, they for keep continuity, the power source he pulls out in Terminator Salvation, where John Connor will again eventually kind of blow up the base by wiring all these power sources together. They're all the same design. So I think the same writers on this did Salvation, or some of it.
and this is the scene when we learn, I think, that the TX is there to kill her, not John Connor. That's
Yes, I think so.
yeah.
Well, we know that she. Well, yeah, John Connor's dead, isn't he? So she sent the Terminator back. So what's her name? Linda?
Yeah,
Not Linda.
in the in the future, he's
Yeah, Kate Brewster. Kate Brewster sends.
to protect herself basically from the TX, which means, and I did look into this to make sure I hadn't got the wrong end of the stick, and I think you might mention it in your retrospective as well. But that means that whole scene at the vets where John Connor meets the Arnold Nater and her is a complete coincidence. Then that's not.
Yeah.
He's got no reason to be there at all. He could be anywhere, literally anywhere on Earth at that moment when the Terminators first turn up. But it just happens to be that he's.
Well, it's all a ploy to trick the audience, isn't it? That's the only thing. This is the twist, you see. And also the ending, which we'll just explore, when we get to it. But that was always kind of shown as like maybe the best part of the film because it actually gives you a bad ending. Not a happy ending, essentially. Think of that. Fucking hell.
Was that a risk worth taking, do you think?
Maybe could have thrown it a bit further.
A couple of metres back and they could all have been killed quite easily then.
I do like that bit there, Arnold. Relax. He gets his moments to be. I mean, Arnold, even when he's like doing it for money, especially with this one, he's still pretty good at being the Terminator. I think he's wired into him now. Just do it off.
I do like the bit.
Just do it automatically.
Have we had it or we're about to have it when John Connor's in the back of the van trying to explain it, and he just knocks on things. Tell her who I am. You are John Connor, last best hope of mankind. All this kind of stuff. It's really funny.
Yeah. He's picking food for a stoner, isn't he? I mean, I'm like, well done, Arnold. Well done. You picked the right food. It's this crisps, some chocolate bars,
and sunglasses. Those rays can get a bit violent sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, this bit. Oh, I hate this bit. Was that a thing at the time?
Yeah,
Maybe some sort of capturing on to sort of pop culture, saying "talk to the hand." And that bloody music in the background, God! And when they did the outtakes on Mr. Blooper reel for the DVD, it had that awful music. I don't know.
Oh
I'm not going to
yes,
sing it.
yeah. You mentioned that as well. I didn't notice it myself,
Ruins
but
it.
yeah.
Oh God! Just shoot the guy. I'll just command him. Just kill him.
Or don't go out of your way to reveal that you've got a hostage in the back of the van. He
Yeah.
only opened the door to put that bag of food in there.
He could have put it in the front.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, man, I hate this guy.
It's,
I hate this guy.
He's still been acting for a while, actually, which is good. He's still getting gigs, acting gigs.
Like, no matter how off his head Ed Furlong was, they should have gone with him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just like, surely they should have knew about continuity and upsetting the fans and stuff, and having someone who's so radically different in terms of performance and how they look. But then it sort of begins the, John Connor's constantly changing. I mean, Christian Bale, I think was good casting, but ultimately he was still fine-tuned into that Dark Knight performance. So he's a very shouty, angry John Connor throughout. He's literally going to break out into going, "I'm Batman," but oh, sorry, wrong movie. And that famous outburst on set where he was like, recorded having to go at the cameraman or the lighting guy. It's comedy gold.
Yeah, I gather he's a bit of a. Yeah, I gather he does that quite a lot. Let's put it that way.
Taking it a bit too seriously. Stahl had different writing. I think he could have pulled it off because he's written to be kind of an unlikable version of John Connor, just a pathetic fool. Just like you don't want to see that in a guy who's going to be leading the resistance against the machines.
He's just a completely generic stereotype of a character, and it's which is bad enough, but it's not a stereotype that fits John Connor. He should be It's like a recently out of high school and misunderstood by his parents, and it's just not. It's not what the young John Connor is, or the old John Connor, or any logical point between the two.
Shouldn't he have been written as some sort of mad conspiracy theorist?
Yeah, that would have made more sense.
He comes across as a Fruit Loop, but he's actually completely right about everything. And he's already preparing his own battle, even though despite, perhaps because obviously they've destroyed everything, he now thinks we're safe, but then he starts seeing the signs of what's going on before everyone else, perhaps, so he has that foresight, instead of being this, tearaway.
Well, given that the timeline has now changed, and he still ends up as the leader of the resistance on the exact spot at the exact time he needs to be, doesn't that make a complete mockery of the whole point of the first two Terminator films, which is that the future isn't set? Is it? Do you think they've done that by accident, or is that just a statement that they wanted to make?
It's tough to know. Listen, the writers had this kind of idea that it would be a statement to make, but I think when they said number two, like as you say, the future's not set, but this implied the idea that the future is set, but you just delayed it. So they done that because they can make a sequel. So you have to sort of break the rules of your own franchise to sort of continue things. This is the only creepy moment. I think that's a good.
The twist around, really.
Yeah, it's really funny.
I made a note here about how much I laughed when I saw that.
Yeah,
it reminds me of Scary Movie. It's something that should happen in Scary Movie.
Yeah. Someone spoofing some sort of possessed person, isn't it? But that's something you'd probably see like Evil Dead or something. A Sam Raimi movie would do it, but for a laugh. And it's kind of, I mean, that was only, but he actually kills him though. I mean, that's at least it's we're getting this movie that is obviously a 12 rated, PG-13 now aiming for, and they're trying to go as far as they can to avoid getting an R. But
Yeah, I do like the splatter of blood there. It's kind of hardcore, but at the same time it reinforces the joke, because that's what would come next if it was a joke. Anyway, they'd cut to a picture of her. That van's been through a hell of a lot. Surprised no one stopped it, or...
I remember when what was it? Like, I think at the time they were talking about like Arnold was carrying this, giant coffin by himself. How strong it was, and you see the behind the scenes. There's got loads of wires on it. So
Really?
I suppose the only annoying thing is arm getting bored and strained holding it there in one position. Oh, it's starting to ache now. Put it down. I remember, what was it, Linda Hamilton wouldn't return, I think, or maybe because I think there's some sort of debate about if she was going to come back or not. But I think she only provided like a radio. Isn't it like a message on a tape? Is it this one? No, it's just Salvation, isn't it? She has a voice.
Yeah, I think it's the next one. Yeah.
This one, I think she got either annoyed or didn't want to return, or was something like that.
Well, her side of the story is that the way her character was written and killed off, just she didn't like. Basically, it was kind of. I think she didn't like the idea there was no. Sort of no time to mourn the character or process what had happened. It was just kind of a throwaway moment.
Yeah. So we're already seeing, actually, going, before this film comes out, it's already compromised. I'm sure that's probably the talk of the fans. Like, well, Ed Furlong's not coming back, Linda Hamilton's not coming back. They've killed her off. You're going to be like quite concerned, aren't you, before going into it?
And you can see the meetings as well. I can just picture and hear the meetings. We've got Arnold. We've got Arnold. We've got Arnold. That's all that matters. We've got Arnold. That's all that Terminator is Arnold.
And they obviously failed to understand it was actually probably Linda Hamilton, who was the key component.
Yeah, and also failed to understand what it is about Arnold that's so good in the Terminator. And I think he probably had a say in it as well, because I remember him saying in there's a making of documentary that I caught the other day, and I think it's in that he's sort of saying, the fans love the funny moments with me in Terminator 2, so we're doing more of those. But they're only funny because they're the exception to the rule. They're only funny because they have this stern background to play on.
Mm. And this becomes, basically, as you were saying, some sort of spoof of it.
Yeah, he's a comedy character in this, and in Terminator 2 has a few moments that were quite controversial, if I remember rightly, at the time. Not everyone was so convinced it was right to make the Terminator funny, but there were a couple of moments where they play with his image, and it's great. But this is nothing but that.
Just catches it in his teeth, doesn't he? This is a time he has to sort of realise, oh, he's a machine,
I don't care how jaded I was. If I was John Connor sitting there and that happened right in front of me, I'd be on my feet cheering or something. Not just, oh yeah, it's just Arnold catching the bullet in his mouth again.
That's awesome. Do it again. It's like... Get assault rifle. Catch all these bullets, please, in your mouth. Always when we get Dr. Silverman, doesn't he?
Oh,
Who
God,
returns,
yeah.
It was like, yeah. They've literally dragged him out of retirement home or something.
The only psychiatrist in LA.
Oh, God, this whiny fucking John Connor.
And I don't think this is how tear gas works either. I've crouched down for a minute and now I'm kind of squinting.
Your eyes would be stinging like hell.
It does a lot of Homer Simpson choking in this, doesn't it, as well? It's the boy.
Little... So yeah, this I think with this one, the Terminator sort of expresses or maybe sort of highlights the little tactics he does to sort of, you know, improve a sort of environment of like stress and you know, because when they're in the car and they're talking away, you know, trying to, you know, Kate Brewster and John, he's like, oh, you know, in a Terminator would sort of say something to say highlight. You know, this is needed. That was actually a good jump scare at the time. I remember in the cinema, I was like, huh, like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, I like that.
That's
As
the only
well.
gory bit in the movie.
But how does the Terminator now step on the brake and the accelerator? Just stop focusing on the irrelevant things, Rob.
God, yeah. That is stupid, yeah. Oh, it's played out kind of interestingly, then it sort of shits
Maybe
the
she
bed.
put her whole, like her legs through the body as well. That would have been worth seeing.
Maybe she can extend her legs, you know, really long legs, you know.
God, the most
You'd think like, oh, here we go,
so
yeah.
incongruous. Why is he a post-trauma counsellor? He's in charge of this like extraordinary facility in the last film, and now he's just knocking about, getting called out to.
He's just there as a cameo, isn't he? That was it. We've got Arnold. We've got the guy who played Dr. Silverman. Well, let's greenlight this film. You know,
We haven't got John Connor, we haven't got Sarah Connor, we haven't got James Cameron, we haven't got Brad Fiedel. We've got Dr. Silverman.
they got Stan Winston back
Oh,
there,
that's
didn't
true,
they?
yeah. Arnold demanded that, I believe.
Oh, I'm not surprised, you know. But also, like, this is like the first one. The first two, everything's kind of nighttime. Every action sequence is generally nighttime, you know, or like the whole film is kind of generally that sort of setting. But this one's all about, let's do it during the day.
Isn't it?
You
Yeah.
know, which takes away some of the sort of, you know, the threat of it.
Even when, yeah, even the nighttime scene earlier at the vet, they made it instantly daylight for the chase afterwards.
Yeah.
This is all I remember about the first time I saw this film. Literally the only memory of it I have is Arnold with a coffin on his shoulder firing a massive gun.
And they slowed the frame rate down, like, artificially. It looks like shit. This Terminator shouldn't have that sort of, again, playing on T2, where he's like, he doesn't kill anyone, but he hasn't been told not to kill anyone, from what I remember in this, with the dialogue they've delivered. But this Terminator should be a combination of T1 and T2, where he will shoot you, will kill you, but he's still protecting
Yeah.
as well. You know what I mean? Just a bit more carnage in the movie.
They have little in-jokes as well that only work if this is the same Terminator, or at least if it has the same memories or something. Like even when he steals the car earlier, the keys are under the visor. That's a trick John Connor teaches him in the second film, isn't it? And he didn't know that, so how does this one know that?
Well, Skynet have programmed into these ones. Check the, you know.
They don't miss a trick, the Skynet people, do they?
Now, I never thought this transition was actually that great. I think it actually works better in T2. It just looks a bit too, I don't know. It's not, I think because it's, well, the other one was daytime as well. It just looks a bit too smudgy. I don't know. It just doesn't look that sharp. It's too soft. I don't know. Yeah.
The liquid metal effect is no better either. There's been no evolution
No, it doesn't change at all. Rocket launcher. Something Rambo would do, wouldn't it? What is it?
Oh God, I can't remember the exact line there, but it's one of those come with us or come with me if you want to live.
Yeah.
And it's delivered so badly, and you know they must have done 20 takes of that, looking for the best one.
Do it again. Do it again. Wouldn't it be like more funny if they actually just stole like an ice cream van? That'd be better, you know. Just like the ludicrous like things where you just grab stuff, you know, and it's coughing, you know, bloody. Oh,
Yeah, there needs to be more violent car chases involving ice cream vans.
another whippy machine explodes and stuff. Just like ice cream everywhere. I love that she's got like a whole like DIY toolkit. It's got like a sander or something as well. Bottle opener, tin opener, it's got everything. Pie server. It's always in Mystery Men. He goes, damn it, I knew I should have bought my large pie server. It's like, so good.
There is something good about the action, and it's a nice it's CG. There's CG in it, but it's not too much, and it's largely practical effects, and it's largely edited sensibly, and there's a lumberingness to it that's good.
I don't generally fault the action sequences because they're kind of delivering on what you kind of expect from a Terminator film, they don't sting around for too long. They're quite impactful and things like that. And as you're saying, the editing's kind of cut nicely. But I just hate the photographic look at the film. I just don't like the look of it. It looks cheap, despite all the money thrown at it. I think because you're just shooting daytime, and there's nothing visually interesting about this. I mean, when you've got the sort of the nighttime, the shadows, and you can play with the light, I don't know. It just seems a bit more dynamic. That's the problem with the film. It doesn't look dynamic at all. It looks very flat. And I wasn't a fan of Don Burgess's kind of work on this. That looks fucking shit. That shot.
I tell you what, as well. I forgot to say I noticed a moment ago when she's looking at her heads-up display of her telling her about her weapon. As she cycles to the next weapon, the text underneath it says something like "insert text about weapon here." They literally forgot to put the text in. I can't remember exactly what it says now, but it's big enough that I thought, because I always try and read things like that, because every now and again you do spot something like that, but it doesn't often happen in movies this big.
But often in the case they put Easter eggs in those things, right? As well. But okay, I'm gonna have to screen grab that. And put
there's two lines of text. I think one of them's something like text here or text about weapon status here or something.
God, that's bad. So I like, because it obviously clear that the operating system for the Terminator also each one's improving. You never see the T-1000's operating system. You don't see what he sees, do we?
No.
So there's only with this one you see what she sees. So it's like RoboCop. The first one, he has this sort of like DOS, Windows, whatever grid of the text and stuff. Where RoboCop 2 with Kane, he's a bit more like Linux or Apple, where there's sort of drop down menus at the top and stuff he's got.
Oh God, he's just dreadful.
I'm sure he must have done an interview and probably just like maybe apologised or just like, yeah, it was the wrong film for me, maybe. But I can't believe him thinking, yeah, that was like,
I'm not sure that he's
perfect
he
role.
didn't go on to do much, did he? I don't think. I mean, I only know him from Sin City, I think, and what's that thing he was in?
A lot of TV stuff. It's done a lot of TV stuff.
He was obviously being groomed or expected to be a megastar if he was cast in this.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, there's a big gap from 2014 to 2019. I think that's when he went a bit off the rails. I think someone that's some weird thing that he'd gone missing or something like that.
Oh, she's not having a good day, is she?
Supposed to be getting married, and her boyfriend gets killed. And he turns up like
Exactly.
someone else,
And she never got to save that cat.
No, what poor cat.
That must be playing on her mind as well.
It's always great though in films when they do massive exposition dumps. It makes it so easy to do a trailer. Just cut to stuff. Oh, wonderful. Because in films that don't have much exposition, back in the day, the trailers would just literally deploy a voiceover to cut through all of it to sort of sell the film, which is like, I don't have that opportunity. Apart from providing my own voice, which I think would be stupid.
she's on a completely different vibe to everyone else. Maybe I'm imagining it, but it's like she thinks she's in a proper film. Like she thinks she's playing a real, character of substance and depth, and she approaches every scene
Yeah.
as if it's going to make sense. And
It's a completely different method of acting going on here with her.
nuclear war. Why is he carrying all those things one at a time over to? He's going back and forth. He could carry that whole lot in one go if he needed to. So they're trying to get some movement into this endless exposition scene, aren't they?
They are, yeah. It's because also they're barely moving as well. Like on the point standing within frame, and like, oh, you got to stand here, you got to stand here. It's just like just turning left to right to watching go back and forth. Yeah, it's actually the same shots back and forth. Yeah, this is being very economical with the time.
And if you notice, he delivers each of the crucial lines is delivered just as he's walking past her, so the camera gets to have him walk through frame and then stay on her for her reaction.
Oh God, he's such a twat, isn't he?
Those marks on Arnie Nator's face are not the most convincing bits of damage, are they?
It's
Looks to me like the metal's been painted on, like it's sitting proud rather than inside.
oh yeah, for sure. Because this is like where they start doing, they're covering Arnold in that sort of green material, don't they? To sort of half his face instead of literally like T2. They'd stick it on with makeup and stuff and prosthetics.
Is that what this is?
Well, I think they've probably just painted it on.
Yeah. I was assuming it was painted on here,
But for later on, when he's damaged and they do the split, it's a CG thing, so it actually fits more flush with his natural face. But again, it's got that CG softness where the original one it had, it's just prosthetic stuck on. But then you have to shoot it, don't you, in a very specific angle, because if you have it side view, it just looks like something's been stuck to his face, like in T1 where he's just this massive eye prosthetic stuck on, This goes, get out. And the guy goes, okay. Oh, boring desert bit coming up. It's like T2 again, back into the desert,
It really is.
Yeah, it's God, these guys just went, okay, we've got to think of Terminator 3. Okay, just get the T2 script, just change a few bits, and we've got a new one. Okay, right, fine.
And then he's like fiddling around with weaponry and explosives as well. That's what they go to the desert to do, basically, in T2. God, yeah, no, that makeup is... You can see the bits that are meant to be metal. You can see it moving with his skin when he talks.
It's just like paint, just literally like there's no... I don't think there's any plastic pieces there. I think it's just literally painted and shaded, But, that sort of... that vehicle, I'd love to just travel around America in one of those.
Yeah.
Oh, God, motorhomes,
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever see that Grand Tour, I think it is, the Top Gear people do? Yeah, the Jeremy Clarkson one, where they each get one of these and drive through the desert. And it's amazing. He makes his into a boat, basically, like a yacht with the driving seat and everything on the roof and stuff going down. That's not an endorsement of Jeremy Clarkson for anyone listening. It's just a...
Well, Jeremy Clarkson was recently voted one of the sexiest men in Britain.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Yeah, right.
He's women gone completely blind. Jeremy Clarkson and his massive beer gut.
His beer baby.
I think he's been pregnant for 30 years. It's like, I think everyone just loves him now because of the Clarkson's Farm, which is a good program.
Yeah. Well, he makes good TV. Whether he's an entirely likable chap's another matter. But
I love how she's basically like this bit here, which is like, oh, how does he die? She's like curious how he's going to get killed. Also, she's like not interested in him at all, like sexually.
yeah.
You've got no prospects, basically. You have no job.
Literally no prospects. This has been like 15 minutes of talking, hasn't it? Now, basically, just 15 minutes of dealing with plot.
Yeah. It's kind of, I suppose, the sort of inherent problem with Terminators. If you see it as an issue where you have the action, things slow down, have some plot, and then go along. But the Terminator, which I think we may have mentioned when we did that, was like the plot is the exposition is delivered within the action.
Yeah,
so it's this constant.
It's kind of the go-to example of how to do that. The original Terminator. I mean, they still have this. I mean, you don't want to do that all the time because you want slow scenes for pacing reasons and to give a breath,
breathing space.
Yeah, you do want that. So like the stuff with Kyle and Linda Hamilton when they're having their romantic interlude, that works in and of itself. But yeah, the way that the exposition is done in the middle of the action is kind of a lesson to everyone.
Yeah, and this deploys it quite a lot to sort of stop the film, have some dialogue, get to the next bit. But it's sometimes you don't see it as a major problem. I think if I suppose if you're over analysing it, you could say, okay, this is a bit too, a bit generic with its structure, isn't it?
But it's everything stopped dead for 15 minutes, 20 minutes ago.
The TX is buggered off again.
Yeah.
It's like it's the same problem with T2, wasn't it? Where the T1000 disappears for a long time. It's just like, what am I going to do? Where are they? So, I bet now, I suppose the T1000 will be able to track them down with social media really quickly, or just ping their phone, or pretend to be someone else and just message them on Facebook. Oh, what are you up to this evening? Oh, this and that. I'm going to be here. Right, gotcha.
Building C4 in the back of Winnebago. What are you up to?
What are you up to? Yeah. Oh, I think I might have just triggered it. Oh, I may see you later or not.
Yeah, she's remarkably relaxed to be sitting opposite this complete muppet surrounded by explosives while he's just fiddling with it without looking at what he's doing.
Oh yeah, your levity's good. Yeah, there's these little moments where the Terminator will sort of have these moments to sort of comment on. The sort of, again, a bit of humour, isn't it?
They've got to start building the idea that these two have some kind of chemistry and life together now, I guess.
Oh, because they played bloody Spin the Bottle or whatever when they were like 8 or something.
Yeah, Mr. Krabke's basement.
Yeah, Krabke's basement. A lot of shit went down on there, man. It's like pure filth.
Can you imagine what a young John Connor got up to in Mr. Krabke's basement? Wow. Whoa. So Skynet has been developed by this government department. Is that right?
Yes.
And so he's in charge of it. He's the one, General Brewster, he's in charge of developing Skynet, and he must be like Mr. AI Weapon Division guy.
Well, yeah, it's part of this military security, isn't it? Where his staff have developed this software. I don't think I don't recall it bringing over Miles Dyson or sort of someone picking up his research.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, where Cyberdyne fits in now.
I don't think it fits in. I think it's just basically inherently going to happen.
Right.
Like someone else will just develop a software that's kind of similar. I don't know, but it's even
without the ARM and the chip that are crucial in T2.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, so it's kind of this is where I kind of think where the movie kind of falters in the sort of expanding more upon Skynet. It's already like things have already at play, and we don't see who's part of what. It's just one guy who's in charge of executing that software. So in the case of this, where Skynet's already self-aware and it's infecting everywhere, creating an illusion that it's a virus, that it isn't a virus, it just wants it to basically be activated so it can then have its fingers everywhere around the world, thus igniting the nuclear bombs, which still I don't believe could be done because nuclear bombs will have to be activated in an analog way. It has to have a human to press something and stuff. That's what they avoid being hacked. Someone has to physically pull something or press this and that.
Yeah.
You always need a human element.
I do like the way that the apocalypse starts with a guy pressing Y on a keyboard.
If it was Homer, it's like, where's the Yeti King or something? You know? He's just got this like duck just going, yes.
Everyone
yes,
there's eyeballing. Look at, is he going to press Y or is he going to press N?
Please, it's just a party poppers. He needs to go and he says, press Y. Because they're launching the software, aren't they? You know. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It all just like goes, disappears. It should come up with the guy from Jurassic Park going, He's royally fucked, you know.
It's working.
Where's it coming from? Where's the source? Oh no.
So Skynet is not switched on yet, but is still self-aware and still has power and control.
Because it's created this virus, hasn't it? So
and it's shut down phones and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's already infected the system to create the illusion there is a virus. So for Skynet to fully activate, it has to have a human element press execute for it to take over and then spread itself across the system. But I don't know, it's still a bit poorly done, I think, really.
Speaking of which, how the hell did they get into this maximum security military facility?
Yeah, exactly.
If all you have to do to end the world is press Y on that keyboard, surely you'd want to protect that keyboard from people just wandering in off the street.
Look at this set. This is like a TV show set. It's like CSI or something, you know. This looks like shit. Because in the trailer, this bit here, he goes, she'll be back. But in the trailer, it's a shot from behind. He turns to camera and looks at it and goes, she'll be back. You know, so they've done different, alternative takes.
How do we want to fuck up that line best?
Yeah. That's just look at that set. It's so TV like.
It really is.
God,
they've made it like ultra smooth and certain, like the floor's ultra smooth. It just makes it look like it's coated in plastic or something.
Yeah. It's like in Star Trek Next Generation. They land on this planet. It's got this weird like space station there, and it's like that. You know,
or even the floors in the caves even in Next Generation, there's so much bare studio floor visible underneath the set.
No, I did love this little fight sequence because it is playing on the idea. It's a bit comic booky, like the fight scene. It's a bit. That's kind of over the top. It's quite nicely executed as a big punch up, really. I mean, you get to see their OS as well, which is better than the T800s. Why? Why is it better? Huh?
Just start by pulling its head off. I'm lucky they fitted that gun with a trigger. A little bit of the Millennium Falcon failing to go into hyperdrive there.
Yeah, that's right.
With Ed 209.
Look at these sets, just like barren, just bland to look at, you know. I suppose it's just trying to bring over this sort of Cyberdyne design, but I don't know, this lacks some of the sheen and the photography just doesn't look. It's not at all dynamic.
This shot makes me laugh.
I want to see this shot. I want to be out there. You know what I mean? Not looking at the window at the good shit.
Hang on. There's mayhem going on outside. We'd better establish that. 3 seconds out of a window, that's fine.
And we're stuck in a boardroom, going through a safe, looking through the files. God, it's so fucking annoying. Look at that. The good stuff's outside.
It's so true.
And then they run outside to the plane where there's nothing going on. It's all quiet. It's like,
they're on a military base, and there's been the apocalypse has happened. Fine. Of course, there's just going to be planes still hanging around for people to fly off in. No one else will have panicked and taken them. No one else will have damaged them. The explosions going on out there won't have.
Yeah. That was a cool explosion, and I like that. They were clearly comped in, though. They were ducking. Oh, he's dead now. He's got all dusty.
So that's your fiance, your dad, and your future all gone now. Not to mention that poor cat.
Oh, she's gone through the most hell, hasn't
She's had
she?
a terrible day.
Poor Claire Danes. I mean, she was probably best and well known, wasn't she, for the time for Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, wasn't she?
That still is now, I think. That's still what I think of first. But I tell you what struck me saying this. I almost don't want to say it because it sounds unpleasant, and also because once you get it in your head, you can't escape it. She really looks like Ewan McGregor in this movie. When you get a close-up of her.
There's a bit there going on, yeah, for sure. A leg just went, like, it doesn't even seem natural. It's like an action figure, like thing they could do, just a little button, leg picks up.
I know it's stupid as well, but this kept bugging me throughout. Like, fine, she's made of indestructible whatever, but surely that hair has to move sometimes. Like, we see it in the first scene, it appears to be normal hair, it's long and down and so on, and she has to put it up into all this goes on, and it doesn't pull the bun out.
No. I know when she like grabs his groin, doesn't she, and like turns him sideways. It gives it a little funny look as she grabs his dick, you know. Surprise! Oosh.
I do like that slam into the toilet head first.
Well, this is more entertaining than that bloody Batman versus Superman fight.
True.
This is what it should have been. It's just the problem is though, yeah, because of the outlandishness of some of the fight scenes, it does become comical, and it shouldn't be comical. You shouldn't be kind of
again. That's in my notes for that scene. Was that meant to be a comedy scene? When she spins her head all the way around, like, I can't work out if that's deliberately funny or accidentally funny.
Oh, they got to burn some of the face off, so he's like half Terminator now, isn't it?
It's remarkably resilient skin though, because it's still kind of.
Oh, when she kicks his head off, though, it's just like, yeah, it's. I mean, I think at the time they were sort of really, pushing the positive kind of use of CGI, and in this we could do this and that, and it just looks like crap.
It really does.
It's too. It doesn't look real. The shading's off, the lighting's off, and it looks too rubbery.
And you don't need CGI there. That can all be done with 2D, with comping, or with practical effects. Yeah.
Yeah. You just have an insert shot, like, of close up of it kicking the head, so it separates in practical. Then you've got the head in the wide shot, as still as a practical. It's just break it down into shots instead of being one. When I saw this, I remember thinking to myself, when I got to this part, I was like, I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting something to be more like, I don't know, like something more crazy for the ending, and it always was just like this kind of underwhelming kind of thing as they run into the base and they find themselves in this old bunker from the 1950s, from the Cold War or whatever. I don't know. I didn't know at the time what I wanted, but I was expecting more than what I got delivered.
Yeah, I think the ending at that bunker is really disappointing, to be honest. I'm not a fan of it, and all this stuff here is fair. It's a fair deal for the bit going into the last act. They always have to have a nice big action scene, but also so much of this doesn't make sense as well. But I don't really understand where they are. Is this a military base or a military command center or like a research center?
It's a combination of things, I think. Yeah.
It's everything, because they've got it's like they've got all the top brass there doing, well, General Brewster doing his computer business, but they've also, like, in the next room they've got a warehouse full of those drone things, which normally wouldn't necessarily. And then we're about to learn there's also a particle accelerator in the basement, which doesn't make. Do they have particle accelerators in military bases? Because that's for doing hard science. That's got nothing to do with. You know, it's
What's that massive thing they developed? Is it a Hadron Collider?
yeah,
Sort of
it's
thing,
exactly what it is. That's in here. Yeah,
There was a great picture of one of the guys who works there, and this like I think it's got like even we don't know what it means or what it does or something like that. You know, I thought it was quite amusing. But yeah, it's kind of a
there is no discernible reason to have a particle accelerator in a military base, as far as I can tell.
I always presumed that Skynet, once it had taken over and wiped out the majority of the human race, had to wipe out everything else, and what was remaining, right, was then it developed these machines. It wasn't
Yeah,
the military had designed these hunter-killers and then deployed for what? I was even for military execution, right, of any sort of, war they have, generally with the Middle East or something. But, it just seems a bit excessive to create these things, and that seemed like something from the future. I don't know.
it really isn't in line with the previous two movies, because for a start, I'm sure there's at least one line saying that the T-800s at least were invented by Skynet in order to hunt humans. They were their creation.
Yes.
But also in T1 and T2, we're only dealing with real life technology. Like even in T2, when they have access to the future technology, we don't actually see anything hugely impossible or whatever. Whereas this has gone full sci-fi with the silver drones and that business, the robots as well.
The only way to defeat it is a Hadron Collider.
Lucky it was there.
Yes, lots of convenient moments, Oh, back into a factory like T1, but it looks like crap. There's nothing during night time. What's going on?
Oh, that fire's badly comped in there.
I remember all the explosions in Independence Day when the big ship explodes. It's like really flat digital flame explosions, just like pincers or something. It's awful. Oh, that's
a really bad effect for a movie of this size, and it's not a difficult one to do, really. I don't think the camera was even moving, actually.
It's like 2003 as well.
Yeah.
So, 2002 they would be doing the effects, but you see what the Weta Digital were doing on Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, mind you, it's so often it's time, or it certainly was back then anyway. They could do pretty much anything. I'm sure they could have done that better, but I wonder if they just didn't have the time.
Oh, that's convenient.
Where's everyone got to? What is going on? What? Everyone's just
shouldn't have had a moment where they escape and they're trying to basically avoid these hunter-killers are sneaking past.
Yeah,
and
they're trying to find a vehicle that's still functional and hasn't been destroyed or taken or.
Yeah. I also had this kind of feeling in my mind that stuff was cut out, but
yeah,
sort of condensed this sequence. But I'm not seeing much evidence of it. I mean, of like what potentially. It's like I had this mad theory as a kid, like, oh, there must be like more violent scenes in RoboCop 3. They must have cut it out for it to be a 12, but no, they actually shot it to be a PG-13, whatever. I'm like, no, it's like it could have been a potentially violent movie. No, it wasn't. It was just neutered from the start.
This bit really reminds me of Red Dwarf. Demons and Angels, when Lister's got a control chip in his neck or something, and he's just walking towards them going, get away from me, get away, I'm going to kill you, get away from me. And they just they all just sort of stand there going, what? Which is exactly what he's been doing.
So the makeup here is really good.
Yeah.
I think that some of that is digital. They put the green bits on him, I think. Oof. Back broken. He's out for it. Out for the count.
Oh, he's so annoying. This is another bit that made me laugh. I don't think intentionally, but it's not bad acting. It's just you don't expect to see the Terminator doing this stuff.
The bit I love is when he throws John and then he just goes and that smashes the car, and then he wobbles and like he just looks like he's just about to poo his pants, and he sort of freezes.
I wondered why he was doing that, and I read something. I think it might have been on the IMDb trivia page or something about how he's trying to make himself shut down.
Right.
I don't know quite where the logic is in that. You beat a car to shit, and eventually you'll shut down. Also, it keeps fixing itself, this car, I noticed. At one point, I think the suspension's all broken. Yeah, now I'm sure we get a shot of it again. I think there. Yeah, look, there it's
Yeah.
back. It's...
It's like...
There are all kinds of sound effects that need adding to that bit.
He stays still, though. That was quite good. He just like after he sort of, shuts down. Arnold was quite good at not blinking for extended periods of time.
You're right, Obi-Wan.
He's clenching his butt cheeks over there. There was that line though. Oh, my father's plane. I trained on it or something. You'd be like, what? There's such crap in it. Running over this massive ship. Oh, my dad trained me on this fucking
Is it
ship,
delivered on camera? I can't remember it. Do you see her say it? That's the kind of line that's normally like...
She sort of looks
right.
back. ADR'd in,
It's
isn't it?
exactly the kind of line that's normally in a completely weird place because they had to ADR it when no one was looking at the camera. She does. It's not. I'm not imagining it, am I? She does have a look of. I mean, she's a very attractive lady. I'm not saying otherwise, but she does have a look of Ewan McGregor about her. He's a very attractive man. So this is where they were told to go by General Brewster, isn't it?
Yes, because he basically get him because he knows it's all going to go to hell, so he's telling them to basically go there, which they think is going to be like a safe zone with other military people. But they, or maybe they think there's.
I think the implication
they go there because they think they can find the source of Skynet and blow it up.
Apparently there isn't one.
No.
Apparently there's no way to
No.
turn Skynet off. This shot really is weird. That plane it's so badly comped, but look at the perspective as they run towards the thing. It's like they're being shrunk at the same time. And do you see what I mean? It's completely weird. There's the depth of that shot is nowhere near what's represented in
No. They just literally found a plate and just put it on there, haven't they? That was it.
So again, this is another location that I just don't understand. It's a top secret military installation that they don't even lock the door to, and it looks like no one's been there for years. Everything's covered in dust and kind of looks abandoned.
It's an old bunker, isn't it?
But it's got cutting edge technology and like all the computers are turned on downstairs and stuff.
Yeah, maybe it's like aren't the computers old though? I can't remember. Or they new. I can't remember being old, but I'm sure if they were kind of new, that would be like, okay, Catherine Brewster's father would have like had some sort of thing in place for Plan B or something. But this is like, it's just I just think Brewster's father has just taken them to a safe zone, which is the closest, and it was for, and obviously they're the only ones there because the other military leaders didn't make it out, or some are still at another bunker.
And no one's manning this one for some reason.
And he's ended up becoming in charge, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm trying not to think about that, to be honest.
Leaving him in charge. Oh God, not John Connor again. You'd be like,
I mean, it is. I don't know. Well, so ultimately, this could be mankind's last chance for survival, but because they don't even lock the door, all it would have taken was some hooligan wandering in there with a bit of super glue and gluing up the lock on that control panel box, and they'd never be able to get into it.
Bloody hooligans!
Lock the door at least.
Put in password. It's password. Yay! Right. Okay, we can get in.
You've had such good results with that before, John.
Let's do it again.
I do like this.
When are we cops? Yeah.
I'm a big fan of how ridiculously big that helicopter is.
It's like the Titanic just flies in. Oh, this bit, this is bad delivery. I'm back. You're just like, oh. They wanted to use this in the trailer, but they didn't because it was shit.
Yeah, I did notice they only had the "She'll be back" one. Cheese alert! Cheese alert! Stop just standing there and get under it, for crying out loud.
Now, this is a really good shot of the TX. When she turns around, she sort of just like goes, rah, and sort of sees them escaping. It's really well done. You've got the sparks of the, you know, the sort of the flames and stuff. It's really clearly a completed shot, which I'm happy with, you know.
More sort of animal hissing noises. She does that flamethrower she fires as well. Makes like a lion roar sound effect for some reason.
It does, yeah. And when she dies in it, you hear it again. It's like, wow. When it all explodes. I'm just like, what the hell did that come from?
This isn't it. I'm going to pay attention this time because I couldn't work out how the entire facility didn't end up getting destroyed by his power pack explosion.
Oh yeah, sort of the faces come through now. Like that's very much like, again like T2 with the sort of the panicking face.
Yeah. It made sense in T2 though, because it was desperately trying to find a form that could deal with that molten.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So the blast door's still open when that happens, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it would have, I suppose, inherently, but when they exploded, that door would have gone down and crushed them. You know.
Either way, they're never getting out of there alive, are they? They're completely buried.
Must be another exit. Go through the sewers.
Yeah, just follow,
like Shawshank.
Follow the particle accelerator to the tunnel.
I love the old lift going down, so there should be some still there, some old man. Hello, sir.
It makes as much sense as the fact it's still functioning after that bomb just went off on its head. Crystal Peak, that's it, yeah. Okay.
I suppose they didn't actually use this set for Salvation to show that they're kind of fortified it.
Yeah, that made a lot of sense.
I mean, this is a good set.
Yeah.
I like this set. This is good. This is far better than the bloody one we saw earlier in that military base. I look like crap.
And it is like 1960s, isn't it, I think? Now you mention it, yeah, I hadn't registered that.
These old computers, you know. I think even ZX Spectrum and outdo these. There's a Commodore PET there. That's interesting. I remember thinking, oh, this is it at the ending when I first saw it. I was like, oh, no, this is not what I wanted.
I had no memory of how it ended, so when I watched this again the other day, it was a real surprise. It's very brave of them.
I think most people had highlighted as the sort of the strong point of the movie, that it doesn't have this kind of an ending that audience would expect. It's very much like, yeah, it's going to happen, you're fucked, and you've got to basically set up the resistance from here.
Yeah, I've got no problem with that ending. I just don't like the way it's done. I don't buy into this whole. I mean, they're about to start fielding messages from the insinuation is that this is how and when he becomes the leader of the resistance. But it doesn't make any sense at all to me. Why is he the only way? This is the only one of these facilities? Is there no one qualified to be fielding those? Because how does he start organising the remnants of the military? Why do they let him? It seems like,
I suppose maybe it's supposed to imply that this is the main bunker where the president should be, because it's got the president thing over there for him to do, speeches or whatever, communications with the public in a time of crisis. So yeah, I mean, they just John Connor's there. He must have some sort of authority to be there, so they follow him.
But
who has
also, if this is meant to be the president's bunker, why haven't they updated it in the last 40 years or whatever?
Yeah. And also, wouldn't it also have like a very small skeleton staff?
No matter what the explanation for this bunker is, none of it explains why someone who just wanders in can just take charge of America, basically. Why anyone would clearly there are going to be other bunkers like this that are manned.
Yeah.
Clearly
and that would be an interesting thing, is where he's, because obviously in Salvation they jumped quite far forward, don't they? Maybe about a decade or more. So you don't see, obviously at that point John has lost kind of control, in Salvation, where the people don't believe him, and some people do because they think he's a prophet and so forth. This kind of religious kind of thing aspect to it, where they see him as this kind of second coming, always going to be the one to bring them to save the day. But from, I suppose, that sort of middle gap is where he has control, then lose it because people just don't believe his bullshit.
But I'd always imagined him, even after this film came out, because like I said, I don't remember anything about it, but I'd always imagined him coming to power or finding his place as a result of his exploits in the field, as a result of being such a great resistance fighter in the face of Skynet.
So all we find out is that he only becomes leader because he has, he knows the future. But then this future's been delayed, so all we can say is like, there's going to be this type of infiltrator, a T-800. There's going to be hunter killers and so forth. But which he's never seen. He's only seen this kind of new version.
Yeah, I mean,
he's still like it's still be everything he said is still going to be highly risky.
And who the hell's going to believe it?
Well, yeah. This shot here, I swear, I think it was reused in Smallville, because it literally looks like Smallville TV show.
Again, it's this. I hate these voiceovers that tell you things you should be seeing, or spell things out that have already been established.
Yeah,
that's a cool shot.
I love that, Rob. You completely flip flop.
I think.
Fuck! I can't stand this. People explaining. Oh, it's a cool shot.
I think when that voiceover started, I just shut it off the other night. Right, this is close enough to the end.
And there's Arnold. And then it ends with the credits with the orchestrated version of the Terminator March, which is an abomination. Should never have done that. Foolish people. So yeah, out of all the Terminator films, we will be going through them, but this is definitely one of the weaker efforts. The action is confidently done. It's entertaining action, but miscast actors. It's missing key players who should have been in it, and how Skynet has been evolved and developed is not really well explained. And how can it be operating as a virus then can only be operated by human, decision? It could have worked, but it's not really doesn't really give you much weight to really sell the idea that Skynet's taken over. It all seems a bit of a rushed kind of way to get it all across, and I don't know. I think a little bit more thought was put into, especially John Connor, because he's just deployed, as we've highlighted, as this kind of foolish guy who's basically like a druggie
Yeah.
in some way, and completely has no confidence in himself. And they should have had him. I mean, as I sort of theorised that maybe they should have gone with a guy who had a conspiracy theorist, or had sort of developed a following, behind the scenes, and didn't perhaps, obviously you have to be off the radar, but maybe he had security in place to keep himself hidden.
But you want to do something that points to the fact that he's will one day be a great leader who inspires people, and who you want to you want him to be like an underground conspiracy theorist type with a small following, but a small but dedicated. You've got to do something to show that he's going to what he is going to be. This character. He's not. Even in Terminator 2, John Connor's clearly the dominant, cool one in that relationship with his mate. You get the feeling that mate would take a bullet for him. And there's none of that in this. He's just a complete waste of space.
He could have changed his name, you know what I mean? Like, so to hide himself and maybe become this sort of politician, or sort of a left field kind of like...
Yeah. That would have been interesting. Yeah, make him a politician, yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, it's got a pop music in it. Oh, God, did this? Okay, well, fair enough. T2 had Guns N' Roses, right? It's just got some.
That's not pop music, though.
No, it's not
proper
pop
music.
It's like a soft rock. This is it. This tune is, but yeah, not appropriate for this.
Yeah, I think my takeaways from this are it's not miserable. It's just. There's a weak ending, which if it didn't have that weak ending, I think it would work better overall. But my two main problems are definitely the casting and design of the character of John Connor, and just too much jokey Terminator stuff, too much too much messing about with what that character is. And
it looks awful for the most part. It looks like a TV movie with some expensive effects thrown on it.
The funny thing is, I quite like that look. It just doesn't suit Terminator. I like it, brightly lit and nice warm colours and TV.
Oh, sure,
it just doesn't suit the Terminator at all.
No, and it forgets its roots in many cases. It's a horror film, it's supposed to come from a horror sci-fi. Then it went to full sci-fi. But this is kind of just really an action movie with a couple of little bits of visual gore, but it's very tame. It's PG-13, So I remember, like, I'm sure, like, when it was announced that it was coming out, and you sort of posted, it said 12, and I was like, oh, God, no, not 12. And how old was I at this point? I was like 21, coming up to 21 when it came out. So I was like full grumpy mode. When, before it came out, and then like, being annoyed and being sort of deflated because you knew then Arnold wasn't going to be acting for a very long time. But I suppose it was kind of seeing he'd retired from acting and become a politician, So it was just like, was that it? And I don't recall. I don't know what James Cameron said about the film, but he would always defend Arnold anyway. So I remember, didn't they wheel out James Cameron to support Terminator Genesis, saying, how good it was and all this stuff, and seeing his movie again, the first one, being recreated. I was just like, what? Everyone hated it, think, James, what are you doing? But then James is, he's always going to support Arnold. It's like when people, get annoyed with George Lucas and not, and all the CGI and stuff, and not re-releasing Star Wars to how it's supposed to be, and they often quiz Spielberg about it, but he won't say anything negative about George, and he won't say anything negative about Spielberg because they're friends, and you wouldn't, sling mud at your mate on TV or in an interview.
You can kind of read between the lines sometimes with Spielberg, though. He has said a couple of things that are quite amusing.
I'm done with Indiana Jones. He's like,
when there's a great interview with him where he's talking about the idea for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's like Lucas has got 5 minutes into explaining it, and he just goes, "Okay, George, whatever. Okay, fine. We'll do whatever you say." Just it's like it's hurting his head so much trying to understand it. He's just given up.
Just tell me when you need to be filmed. Give me the money.
Tell me where to point the camera and make sure I've got 25% of the back end.
Oh dear. But yeah, it was this. I still bought it though when it came out on DVD. It's weird, isn't it? Where you sort of think back to like being disappointed with the movie, but then you sort of wanted to give it a go when it came out on DVD. I think it's a different mindset, and to try and maybe sort of maybe you're missing something when you first experience and you want to see it again, and perhaps like some deleted scenes will help explain things a little bit more clearly. But it's often the case like, why did I buy it?
Yeah, I know you. I thought this the other day when I put the DVD in my drive to watch the making of documentary. I think I probably haven't touched this disc in more than in 20 years, basically.
Jesus. And there's no disc rot either. It still works.
Perfect.
Play the video game by Terry. Oh, the video games, they were mostly awful. I think only one of them was actually okay. The rest were garbage.
I missed them entirely.
Well, folks, that's the end of the commentary. I hope you enjoyed it. Me and Rob will be back next with some RoboCop, with RoboCop 2 next, which is, I think, generally a good sequel.
That's an interesting movie.
Yes, a lot of good stuff in it, but it's a movie that's a bit mean-spirited, put it that way. Okay, everyone, take care of yourselves, and goodbye.